The transport shuttle Meridian's Hope hummed through the void between Arcturus Station and the diplomatic hub of Nexus Prime. Its passenger compartment buzzed with quiet conversations in dozens of languages, some spoken, others transmitted through bioluminescent patterns or pheromone clouds. The Galactic Council's annual Peace Summit drew representatives from across known space, and this particular shuttle carried delegates, diplomats, and observers from 43 different species. In the third row, HFY tried to make herself smaller. It was a futile gesture. Her species, the Cathara, were not built for subtlety. Her carapace was mottled gray-brown, marked with the ritual scarification that denoted her scholarly status. Chitinous spines protruded from her shoulders and forearms, clicking softly when she moved. Her face, if it could be called that, was a complex arrangement of compound eyes, mandibles, and sensory tentacles that most other species found deeply unsettling. She had boarded the shuttle 30 minutes ago, her credentials marking her as Dr. HFY Clicking of Stones, xenobiologist and expert on interspecies genetic compatibility. The other passengers had taken one look at her and quickly found excuses to sit elsewhere. The elegant Vylorian ambassador had glanced at her, then smoothly moved 3 rows forward, his crystalline features betraying no emotion but his body, language speaking volumes. The delegation from Kepler-7 had shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their translator whispering urgently before they relocated to the shuttle's rear section. Even the usually tolerant Andromedans had found urgent business that required their attention at the opposite end of the cabin. HFY understood. Her species had only joined the Galactic Council 15 cycles ago, and the Cathara's appearance triggered primal fears in most humanoid species. They looked like the predatory insects that had haunted nightmares across 100 worlds. The fact that they were peaceful herbivores, renowned for their contributions to medicine and biology, seemed to matter little when faced with their alarming physical presence. She clutched her research tablet closer to her thorax, reviewing her presentation for the 100th time. Her work on cross-species genetic markers could revolutionize medical treatment across the galaxy, potentially saving millions of lives, but she suspected that few delegates would be able to look past her appearance long enough to hear her findings. The shuttle shuddered slightly as it adjusted course, and HFY's mandibles clicked nervously. She had specifically requested this transport because it was scheduled to carry several prominent xenobiologists she hoped to meet. Instead, she found herself sitting alone while conversations flowed around her like water around a stone. That's when the human sat down beside her. HFY's compound eyes tracked the movement as the man settled into the seat to her left without fanfare or hesitation. He was unremarkable by human standards. Medium height, brown hair graying at the temples, wearing the simple blue uniform of an Earth diplomatic courier. He carried a worn leather satchel and moved with the quiet efficiency of someone accustomed to long journeys. She tensed, waiting for the usual reaction. Humans were relatively new to galactic society, but they had quickly developed a reputation for being unpredictable. Some human factions had embraced alien contact with enthusiasm that bordered on recklessness, while others had retreated into xenophobic isolation. This one could react with either fascination or disgust. Instead, he simply pulled out a battered paperback book and began reading. HFY stared at him, her sensory tentacles twitching with confusion. No acknowledgement. No polite conversation. No subtle signs of revulsion or forced tolerance. He read his book, something called The Left Hand of Darkness by an author named Ursula K. Le Guin, as if sitting next to a Cathara was the most natural thing in the galaxy. Minutes passed in comfortable silence. The human occasionally turned, a page sometimes making soft sounds of interest or amusement at whatever he was reading. HFY found herself relaxing for the first time since boarding. The constant tension of waiting for rejection, for the inevitable moment when her presence became too uncomfortable to ignore, began to fade. Around them, other passengers continued their conversations, but she noticed something remarkable happening. The Vylorian ambassador glanced back at their row, his expression thoughtful. The Keplers stopped whispering among themselves. Even the Andromedans seemed to be paying attention. It was, she realized, a masterclass in quiet diplomacy. Without saying a word, Without making any grand gestures or speeches about tolerance and acceptance, the human had simply demonstrated that HFY was worth sitting next to. His calm presence beside her transformed the dynamic of the entire cabin. The human, she could see his identification badge reading Thomas Park, Diplomatic. Courier Terra, when he shifted position, continued reading as if oblivious to the subtle changes his actions had triggered. But HFY suspected he was very much aware. Humans, she had learned, were remarkably perceptive about social dynamics, even when they pretended otherwise. As the shuttle began its final approach to Nexus Prime, Thomas Park finally looked up from his book. He glanced at the research tablet in her claws, where complex genetic diagrams scrolled across the screen. "Interesting work," he said quietly, his voice carrying just the right tone of genuine curiosity without being intrusive. "Cross-species genetic compatibility?" "Yes," HFY replied, her vocal synthesizer translating her clicking speech. "I'm presenting at the medical symposium tomorrow." He nodded. "I'll try to attend if my schedule permits. It sounds important." That was all. No effusive compliments, no awkward questions about her species or appearance. Just a simple acknowledgement that her work mattered. As they prepared for docking, HFY noticed the change in the cabin's atmosphere. The Vylorian ambassador had moved closer, clearly interested in overhearing their conversation. Several other delegates were paying attention, their previous discomfort replaced by curiosity. When the shuttle's doors opened, Thomas Park stood and gathered his belongings. He nodded politely to HFY. "Good luck with your presentation, Doctor." He was gone before she could respond, disappearing into the crowd of disembarking passengers. But his impact remained. As HFY made her way toward the terminal, the Vylorian ambassador approached her. "Dr. Clicking of Stones, isn't it? I've heard fascinating things about your research. I wonder if you might join our delegation for dinner tonight. We're most eager to discuss your work." For the first time in cycles, HFY felt truly welcome in galactic society, and it had taken nothing more than a human who understood that sometimes the most profound statements were made in silence, that acceptance could be demonstrated simply by taking a seat and reading a book. She never learned why Thomas Park had chosen to sit beside her that day. Perhaps it was random chance, or maybe he had recognized the familiar isolation of being different in a crowded galaxy. Either way, his simple act of treating her as unremarkable had somehow made her remarkable to everyone else. That evening, as she shared dinner with delegates from 6 different species, all eager to hear about her research, HFY reflected on the strange power of human empathy. They had been part of galactic society for barely a generation, yet they seemed to instinctively understand something that older, more established species had forgotten. That dignity was not earned through appearance or status, but simply by being acknowledged as worthy of common courtesy. The Cathara had many words for different types of wisdom, but they had recently adopted a human phrase that seemed to capture something essential about these remarkable newcomers. Still waters run deep. Thomas Park had been the stillest water of all, and his depth had changed everything.